And then like here, when there's rain and wind, then it's even feeling more chilly. But then it's when it's, so that's in my country also the same. And but there's one special thing, and it's, by the way, don't think that my country always is fully with snow. It's actually a few days, sometimes exceptional, a few weeks, that we have snow. So this is, it's not something that you think, oh, north it's always snow. No, that's not the case. Let's say, okay, North Pole, let's say, and that's of course the case, but not in my country. And the special thing about Dutch people, many people of us like skating, skating on ice. So that's why in the Olympic Winter Games, who have just been finalized, we won extremely a large number of medals. And now not for me, but for my country. Yes. There was one Ghanaian, by the way. Oh, no, no. Yeah. No, it was good, it was good. Your country was there represented on the Olympics Winter Game. He was actually, I think, he's actually living in my country, so. But it was definitely Ghanaian, so your country was there, for sure. He was the best. From your country. I think he was the best African even. So, no, but that's, yeah, it's of course, but you'll do better in summer games, of course. Now these days, because it's cold, let's say water is also starting to freeze, and then people like to skate outside. So that's just an opening of today. What are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? I promise you to that this morning we work on, let's say, the assessment of your own institution through an online tool, which I will explain to you. And probably the actual start working with the tool will be I think just be or perhaps before or after the tea break. And I've urged the technical staff to give more juice to the internet, because when we came in this morning it was not so good yet. So they promised to work on it. Let's hope that that will be the case. So that's the morning. So based on the assessment, then there's some group work to actually sit together and see, okay, what does this mean? How do I interpret the results? And in the afternoon we continue working on that, and then later I would like to move then from, okay, how we could envision our institution in a more ideal, in the ideal world. How would our institution look like from the perspective of being more entrepreneurial? So I think that's the program of today. In my schedule, I have planned more time for group work and also presentations of more groups. So we'll see how, if there are only one group left, then we may need less time, but we'll see. For now, I just would like to start with a very simple exercise to start up the day. Which is good morning, which is just a small questionnaire where asking, do you have what it takes to be an entrepreneur? And of course there are many of these kind of tests on the internet. I suppose you will also use it in class, but I thought it's a nice starting up of today, that you just look at yourself and see, could I be a good entrepreneur? So this is I'll distribute this side and this side. So that's first a small simple exercise. So how does it work? There are only 10 questions. It's a very straightforward, simple. Do you have enough copies at your sites? Also for the 2 backbenchers? Do you have enough? You have enough. So how does it work? Please answer just write down yourself on this paper. Answer the 10 questions with yes or no, and of course, in reality, it's not black and white, but anyway, yeah, it's a simple one. So that's step 1. And step 2, below there's a scoring table. So then you have to fill in your own scores, and then later we can see what the total implies. I think this is simple, yeah? Okay, since most of you already finalized. So at the end you have a score. Good morning. Between 0 and 135. That's the possibility. Hi, Vincent, I think. Yes? So it's a very simple exercise. But of course it's checking in a very rudimental way about your entrepreneurial attributes. So, who has a score between 0 and 70? Okay. According to this simple one, you still have to work very hard on your entrepreneurial attributes, yeah? Okay. And between 75 and 105. And also myself. I'm also there. Okay, no, okay. Don't do that. So, according to this one, you're a possible entrepreneur, but it's still hard to get there. And who are our champion entrepreneurs according to this test? Please raise your hands. So 110 and above. One there. I saw another 110, I think. Okay, Edwin, the only one? Yeah, that's what I mean. 110? 115. So you're the champion from this group. Oh, this is a kind of student, technical student behavior. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, now it's Sunday. Do you use these kind of exercises also in class? No. But it may be nice.
Maybe I'll start using it. I'm looking for it.
No, you can. Yeah, I think if you look on the internet, there are ones that may be more elaborate. Because this is of course a very simple one, which is nice to start of the morning. But if you want to use it in class and have a more profound discussion, but it's nice. It's nice because it's and because you can use this type of work as a startup for also group work of your students to with some more detailed questions. Perhaps then they need to find cases around it, so examples. So we think what are good examples, who are people who are very risk-taking. So it can start up as a kind of also you can use in your education. Okay, okay. He said it's a nice one. I think I've gained something. It was not on the mic, so that's why you didn't hear it. Okay. But I think there are more elaborate ones on the internet, yeah? Just to this is what we are in today, still on the current situation, and we did yesterday with the mapping on what are all kind of challenges surrounding us, which makes us that we need to change. And this morning I would like to focus on the framework. There are all kind of frameworks on how to look at entrepreneurial universities. And I will briefly explain a few and then and focus on one, which is an online framework developed by the OECD, the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development, in togetherness with the European Commission. And it's a very straightforward, simple one online, and so it's nice as a starting point. Yeah? We did this. I don't have to, I put this on for those who are new today. I think you are new today. So I just say it for you because then there's no confusion. This is, although I started with a test on entrepreneurship, this is not a training on entrepreneurship. And we use, let's say, this broad definition on entrepreneurial university, which is really a university which is designed to empower creative and entrepreneurial behavior of its faculty, of its staff, of its students, to be very active in partnering, collaborating for exchange of knowledge with all kind of stakeholders, and has the ability to change whenever needed in the context. Now, there's more to say, but then at least you also have that same perspective, okay? Of course, like all kind of topics, also here there's a literature body. I think it's good for you to know that, let's say, the whole thinking of the entrepreneurial universities didn't start in a country like Ghana. You say the origin really started more in a knowledge economy context in the US and in Britain mainly. And there's a fly here in the room. It was first pestering you, Kwame, and now it's pestering me. So let's say what important schools who actually coined the whole concept are Clark in the United Kingdom, Burton Clark, and Professor Henry Etzkowitz in the USA. And Etzkowitz did mainly research first on MIT, and the whole idea, his idea was really a university is contributing to actually business development and economic development in the region. So that's core to his thinking. That's how, with innovation based on faculty research, you actually are able to commercialize and really contribute to the economic development in your region through commercialization and spin-offs. Whereas that's in the knowledge economy, universities are of vital importance to actually be a kind of motor for innovation, for motor of innovation. Clark, in that sense, was a bit broader. He said there it was more also linked more closely to our definition from that I use, is that universities are in a very complex environment with less funding, like we also mentioned yesterday, and how they do organize in a more creative entrepreneurial manner to diversify funding, but strengthen also the leadership and the central steering organization, cooperate also more with all kind of partners. So that is, let's say, broadly two different concepts who are, if you dive into literature more, you see that that are the two big founders of the whole entrepreneurial university. Others I list there, but I'll skip it for now because I think this is otherwise I think this you can do it also yourself. Because I would like to use our time more efficiently and effectively by focusing on the framework that we're going to use. And what it says, based on the whole body of literature and ideas, they say when you look at entrepreneurial universities, these 7 elements, 7 clusters, are of importance to have a look at, to see how we, what are our stronger and weaker elements in these 7 clusters. which is about what is in our strategy. Is there any commitment of the highest leadership? Not only in words but also in deeds, of course. How is your governance structure also supportive to be entrepreneurial? These kind of things are in there. I'll move on. Then organizational capacity. We mentioned yesterday the challenge of resources. Good morning. So what do you have in place for actually funding all your strategy and all your ideas? How do you incentivize your staff? You may have a nice vision, but if you not incentivize your staff to actually work on that vision, then there's a kind of problem. We talked about, let's say, budgeting, internal budgeting. How does it work? So this are kind of things. Then you may perceive being, let's say, the core. Good morning as well. Good to see you back. I hope you don't mind that we started already. Is the whole entrepreneurial teaching and learning. So for which of course is the core to also what Knus is doing. So looking critically at your teaching and learning process. So not only, let's say, one thing is content-wise, what kind of programs do you have that are supporting entrepreneurship and innovation, but also what are your teaching methods and the capacity of your staff to actually teach in an entrepreneurial way. I think not at Knus, but there are some other places where still certain lecturers only from the book and hardly any exercising. Students hardly go out of campus to actually experience. So these things are there. The fourth one is what perhaps before we started yesterday morning, you thought, yeah, that's what it's all about. This is about what do we have in place for those students or also faculty members who really actually would like to start up a business. Here comes into play the entrepreneurship development center or an incubation center. Or we had a brief discussion yesterday about giving access to funding. That's that part. The fifth is the whole partnering. So how do we actually organize partnering with private sector, with government mainly, to get input for our academic process and also to enrich them. The sixth one is internationalization. Internationalization is there, and that was sometimes people say, oh yeah, why it's there, why it's there. It's from the idea that nowadays, where we have also yesterday talked about, let's say, the whole environment, if you want to be entrepreneurial, you also have to be international. You can be very international but not entrepreneurial, but the other way around, the vision is that cannot be. Because for several reasons. Students, your best students compete also globally. So you're actually also helping them to also find perhaps work, not only here, not only in capital, but perhaps even beyond. So that's also, you need to be aware of that. Research is also increasingly international. Can be in a West African context, but can be also international. Companies are, even if they're smaller, are increasingly part of a value chain that goes beyond this region, beyond your country. So there are a lot of, let's say, global, more international um, developments which impacting your institution. And the seventh is, let's say, great if you have certain activities and a vision, but then how do you know that you're doing what you want, that you're actually doing what you envision? And can we learn from our lessons? Okay, I've explained it now briefly. I'll have, for each, I've got another slide, so I'll perhaps repeat again, but then at least it's clear. Is it clear? Is it clear so far? Is it clear so far? Okay. And let's say the online tool is also structured in this way. Yeah? Okay. So when we talk about entrepreneurial university, the whole aspect of leadership and governance is of importance. I think that was also clear, I hope, from my examples from Twente, where there was a leadership who actually had a certain vision, and also in Makerere, where actually the initiative was not from the leadership, it was actually initiative was from faculty members, but the leadership was wise enough to then act upon it and made it a kind of university policy. So it doesn't say that leadership is always from top to bottom. No, you can, but let's say in entrepreneurial universities, it's really about you have a vision, and you then in the vision make it happen that actually the faculty who have the knowledge and they have the most of the time the contacts with all the external partners are able to work. So if you have a mission and vision statement, also Knust has got a statement, is it explicit enough, clear enough that that you think, yes, this is an entrepreneurial vision and mission statement? And then in the idea that entrepreneurial university is there to cater the current or future demands of the society, which also was mentioned yesterday, the relevance of the institution. So is it very clear that it's there? Because some statements, but I think it's the entrepreneurial. I think I've read something about Knust, and it is already there. But some universities only have, let's say, the traditional academic education and research is there. Has it been operationalized in a strategy? Is there also internal coordination? Is it, let's say, a nice strategy and everyone is doing something? Or is there kind of coordination possibility that you, an office, that a desk on university industry relations, which may be present, is also, for instance, is working in the same coordinated way as a perhaps community service or a project unit. And where is actually the formal high-level commitment? So is it a formal part of one? Is it of your vice chancellor, of on a provost level, or where, let's say, is someone that is, let's say, yes, I'm steering this for the organization, of course, on behalf of the vice chancellor then, but is there someone, or is it very low in the organization? Let's say. Yeah, positioning community. yeah, that has also to do with your vision and strategy. Let's say, which role do you play as university in local and regional development? You can be reactive or active, or not active at all. That's also possible. I think in the African context, not active at all is, I think you will not find it. Because I think wherever you are in Africa, universities do play a role in community development, one or the other way. Yeah. But do you do that only on a reactive way, or are you really an active, innovative partner for your municipality, for your, what do we have in Ghana? Regions, districts? What's the right? Region is smaller, district is bigger. The other way around. Okay, okay. Yeah, that's terminology is always per country a bit different, yeah? Yeah. Oh yeah, no, so for Knoes with your size, region would also, no, yeah, I think your ambition is beyond the municipality of Kumasi, yeah? Yeah. So that's where, for instance, an example in my country, in the province, there's a kind of structural platform on where the provincial government, the representatives of the private sector of the province, and the university, because in our province we've got one university, in a structural way actually partner and discuss, let's say, local economic development, and to see how we can really cooperate in a way. And that's then on that table, things are discussed, like the whole issue on youth employment, like how to make the region more innovative, etc., etc. And as a result, then the province is helping to also fund part of work of the university. So the more active you are there, the more you can also shape, let's say, the whole development of the region you live in. Yes, is that answering your? Okay, and the second one are we also mentioned already yesterday. Yeah, something crossed my mind. I will tell it. Let's say in this framework, the focus is mainly on money. And on, let's say, the your staff. And so from the entrepreneurial perspective, we consider, let's say, a university who is able to diversify its funding as now better as being good. Yeah, so it's good to be able to diversify. Also, as a state funding state institution, you still can find a way to diversify. So in principle, the idea is the better you diversify, the more entrepreneurial you can say. Yeah, that's a bit behind it. And we also yesterday mentioned the internally generated funds. So that's also is there. And from staff, are you in your recruitment or your advancement policy only looking at number of publications, or is there also a way of incentivizing if someone has a brilliant new invention that may lead to a spin-off and actually also can contribute to revenues for the organization? That's a lot of work for people to do that. But is that also seen in your policy of how you treat your staff? Is it also for staff possible for, let's say, to swap, for instance, half a year with someone from industry? So to get some practical experience, you go to industry. Then you may, perhaps it is within a sabbatical shape, but anyway. So is it also possible the other way around for people in business to actually, for instance, have an extraordinary position for within the university? As how do you call that? A special, adjunct faculty or something like that, or a special professorship, these kind of things, yeah? Because you can have big, very charismatic people in industry who you would love to also attach to your institution, because they bring network, they bring all kind of experience, and they may also bring money, so they can have a chair. Yeah? These kind of things. That's in there. What I realized, that was when I was hesitating when I started explaining, what is not there in the framework, as far as I know, and because it's an OECD European framework, is, let's say, all kind of physical infrastructure. And because I think what I found out with this framework, it assumes from a European perspective, it assumes that infrastructure on campus is already conducive enough. Conducive is the right word, yeah. Conducive enough for a good teaching and learning environment. And that's not always the case. The more remote you are in your continent, the less that is the case. So you see, there's a kind of that I found out. Okay, but it's in there. So so we start from, because entrepreneurial university is really a kind of strategy concept where you really need to make a choice that needs to be rooted there. And then what kind of instruments do you have? In the teaching and learning, what do you have in place for actually developing entrepreneurial mindset and skills? So in the end, so you may have a wonderful vision, but if you don't find it in your learning objectives of the courses, then there's a mismatch again. So it does imply for, and now we are more closer to responsibilities of deans, so it really also needs at a certain moment to really critically look. I'm not talking about inserting an entrepreneurship course per se. It is also about looking at your programs that you are offering at the learning objectives themselves, and how you're laughing. Why you're laughing? You had discussed this before. Tell me somewhere else. Or you, William, because you had suggested.
Because we have been, yesterday I mentioned, I have to say this, when I was...
Mic, we need a mic now.
Yeah, yesterday when I was giving the opening,
okay.
I mentioned that William got Erasmus project.
Yes, you did, 1 million.
About 1 million euros.
Yeah, congrats.
And for the past 2 weeks, he and myself, we have been discussing, and we have been brainstorming. Now, are we going to change the whole curriculum, bring more courses in entrepreneurship? So even last night we met. And we said, and it's not about that, but it's the learning objectives.
Yeah.
So when you just said it, it's
you are happy that I said it. Okay. Now it starts from the learning of, let's say, because that's also what you do. That's your academic process. You have your program objectives, and then your course learning objectives. And then if you organize your program well, that's the way you organize it. And the whole idea, you have got your program objective, your learning objectives, and then you know how to also assess. That's the whole, that's your teaching process. Yeah. You still may want to add your entrepreneurship course, so I don't say you don't have to do it. But the essence is also about, if you look at the entrepreneurial attributes, what kind of list you will using. You can also Google online, or you ask Sunday what's he doing in Nigeria, or at KNUS you also probably have entrepreneurship lecturers. Do you have entrepreneurship lecturers? You do, I suppose. Yeah. Okay. And then look at them and see, do we have learning objectives that are in which actually, if you perhaps rephrase them a bit, we're actually working on these attributes. So for many programs, you need to present something as a student. So a very important thing in also entrepreneurial attributes is the whole is about communication skills. It's definitely also there. And kind of communication skills are in many courses. Yeah. I don't know what your what's the subject of your program? Yeah, okay, but what's the specific? That's in engineering, yeah, or what? Where's the button? Okay. Now, a very nice example, because I am working, as you may know, also in Indonesia with an agriculture university, and now I'm mainly working with the University of Animal Sciences. I'm totally not expert on animal sciences, and I won't be now. I know a bit of it now in that country. They're eating a lot of chicken because it's 95% Muslim country. So in Jakarta alone, daily 1 million chicken are consumed in capital. It's massive. So it's a massive industry. But anyway, I've also one of my Indonesian friends is an entrepreneurship expert, and he is actually helping them. And he looked at their courses. And he really looked at their learning objectives. And students had to do an assignment. Students had to do an assignment already. So if you bring an industry in the assignment, so a student group, you say go to one of the companies and do an interview with the owner and ask him about his challenges and what he did, etc. And then there's a reflection for the student, what does it imply for him or herself. You're actually working already on the entrepreneurial attributes. But content-wise, it may be on engineering. Yeah? Content-wise, it may be on engineering. Or it's in arts. Yeah? So I think that's one thing. Innovative teaching methods, yeah, innovative, it's what's innovative? But anyway, it's how do you actually teach? So, do you indeed stimulate in your teaching that, do you stimulate creativity and entrepreneurial behavior of your students in your teaching? There's also one example that I liked. There was also a teacher who also gave an assignment to a group of students, and it was also nicely written down. And but what he said, I didn't give them all the information they needed. So the students came back to him and said, "Yeah, professor, I don't know, because something is missing here. I said, yeah, come on, this is life. This is life. If you do research, there's also something missing. Or if you work on a company or in government, something is missing. So go out and solve it. And of course, he did it in a certain way that they can solve it in a certain way. So it was a straightforward assignment, but he just challenged them to be creative in finding a way to go about with missing information. So it can be on all kind of topic, but it's actually challenging to be creative, to be entrepreneurial, to go out, to network, and to get information. Yeah, good example. Also there, is it possible for external people to come in for guest lecturing, for students to go out, and also of course research I list there. In the framework, for me research is a bit underestimated, I think it's more important. So that's also there. Oh, I can also, doesn't matter. Preparing and supporting entrepreneurs. So this is really from, this goes beyond shaping your learning objectives for whatever course, yeah? This is really for those who really would like to start up a business. So what do you have in place as institution? It starts from awareness. So in my view, it is important for every student, fresh student of your university, whether CNUS, Sierra Leone or Nigeria, that they at least should be made aware of that there are different career paths in life possible. And so I find it, I recommend that at least in the first year somewhere of your bachelor programs, in principle of all bachelor programs, there is a kind of entrepreneurship awareness program, which can be light. It doesn't have to be heavy. But you need to start to make them aware that indeed nowadays when you graduate there aren't jobs for all of you, so there are different career paths. But then of course there comes in the obligation, the responsibility of you as institution, if you make them aware in the beginning, what actually do you have in place for those who really would like to develop, to at least try to start up a business, what you actually then have in place. So you can also say, Huub, nice, we better don't make them aware first, because then we have all people who would like to, but we have nothing in place. So, okay, there can be a kind of what's the best to do first. There you can take, of course, strategic and a kind of tactical decisions. That's indeed more management than comes in. And then what you have in place it goes from awareness to feeding them with information on what a business is, towards perhaps organize an internal business competition, a business plan competition, sorry, where you may have a very tiny loan for the best ones. Yesterday I gave the example of pitching for the ones who really excel. You want to link individual students to business advisors. That can be more senior people from staff who have their own business, like what was your name? Like Christian, yes. Christian, you could be a business advisor to one of the students, for instance. And then later on, let's say those who are really already starting up, they need to have a kind of mentor from real business. So these things, we can discuss that later on, but that's there. How I'm doing in time? I'm doing fine in time. The fifth one, so I think I think number 3 and 4, you may say, are core of the activities. Number 3 is the whole learning process, which nicely that we can have also this week use me to actually discuss about this. It's nice. And 4 is really typically about setting up incubation centers, entrepreneurship awareness, business advice, etc. But 5th is definitely also important, but it's perhaps less concrete. How do you actually collaborate with companies and government in the region or beyond, or district? Or I need to be clear: municipality, district, region. But in Nigeria, it may be again different. How do you? Oh yeah, you've got states, yeah. So it is municipality, then. Okay, local government and state. Okay. And here we've got local government, district, region. Okay, no, that's tea break. That's tea break. Okay. Yeah, I want to hear a tea break from you. So this is that part on. So how you. So for instance, also element here is joint collaborative research. Do you have also mechanisms to really strengthen collaborative research? Let's say that jointly with industry, for instance, a research center really works on a research to really make it help furthering the economy. Internationalization, I mentioned already, is about staff mobility, student mobility, inbound, outbound. What kind of mechanisms do you have within your institution to actually support you if you want to go to for a sabbatical to Germany, for instance? They also are in your field. It's of course one of the leading countries in technology and innovation. So I assume there are international partnerships. So the whole international partnerships, international research. Do you also stimulate students from abroad to come in here? That's in here. And I already explained, if entrepreneurial, then you have to be international. If you are international, you can still not be entrepreneurial. And the last one, now that's a lot of text, but I think we can skip this a bit. What did I write myself? There's a lot of words. Yeah, I see the same as you see, of course, but the essence is, let's say that there's a lot of pressure on universities to perform in a certain way, and then there are all kind of strategies developed, activities undertaken. You've got a massive number of students, a massive number of graduates annually. But then what? Do you actually measure in a certain way the results of all your work? And traditionally, universities are not so good in doing that. Of course, there are perhaps some KPIs on finance, but actually, do you measure, for instance, the number of startups? Do you measure them not only 2 months after graduation, but also do you have some kind of tracing of your student bodies? That may be the case at KNUST, I don't know. And then what do you do with this information? Does it also help you to revise your strategy and also your educational programs? So that's India. Okay? Is that clear enough for now? The instrument, oh, that's very small. Its instrument is called HI Innovate, Higher Education Institution Innovation. And before we go on, hey, there's a question, Sunday.
I want to take you back a little.
Bits.
Preparing and supporting entrepreneurship.
Yeah, that's your cup of tea, of course. It does. It does not, no. I don't know. It does not. Technical staff, do they hear me? They should hear me, yeah? The mics in the room are not working. Okay.
Now, preparing and supporting entrepreneurship.
Yes.
I really got it clear. But during the course of the explanation you gave, you talked about the startup support, the students.
Yes.
Now, in all of it, the students should understand the concept
Yes.
of what entrepreneurship is all about,
Yes.
which is very, very okay.
Yes.
But there is a kind of problem
Okay.
that is currently trending. Because during the course of introducing the students,
Thanks, it's working.
during the course of introducing students to entrepreneurship, most of the times they are always excited, knowing that there are opportunities out there, apart from the field of study that they are focusing on. Now, the students, before year 2,
Yeah.
they begin to establish businesses,
Okay.
most times within the institution.
Uh-huh.
Now, the conflict now comes. Some of them divert more attention
Mm-hmm.
to these areas of entrepreneurship they've been exposed to, not giving enough time to balance the
With the
academic
study.
work. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
So it's becoming a problem. And I would like you to throw more light in this area.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know how to shape more light in this area, but I also don't know. I understand the issue, but I don't know the question.
Okay, you don't get the question. What I'm trying to say in essence is that the trending problem
Yeah.
now that's going on,
Yeah.
that I've observed, though I've not really carried out a proper research on it,
Yeah.
which is ongoing. I'm trying to see what I can do on that.
Yeah.
I've found out that on the average, most of the students who, after understanding the concept of entrepreneurship, within the first and second year in the institution,
Yeah.
they start up something.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Now, when they start up what they're doing, it begins to conflict
Yeah.
with the academic work. They give more time to what they're doing out there to gain income, which is also good, but at the expense of the academic work.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to say to ask is, can you shed more light on how to manage such issues, knowing that it's also important for them to have the study at the beginning or the
Because you can also, I think it's also very fair to use data that are available on failure in entrepreneurship. Because honestly speaking, the majority is failing. That's the fact, indeed. That's a fact of life. But as an entrepreneur, and as a young person, that's okay. Because by failing, you learn. So if you are picturing that it's the situation is rosy, if you're picturing academics and then you will be you won't find an employment. But if you do entrepreneurship, you get a prosperous business. Then it's of course you're fooling everyone. So it's also about indeed how you put it. So you need to be also very clear that it takes a lot of perseverance and energy or whatever, which comes at a price. But if you're really very good entrepreneur, I don't mind that he's quitting academics, because that could be even much better, even also for the country, for the person. Yeah. So I know it's also in many countries they are more or less forced to go to university because that is seen as better. So it's not so black and white. That's one thing. So you also really need to say that it needs perseverance, it needs hard work, it needs focus, comes to a price, and there's a big chance of failure. So you see now, for sure, in companies that in startups that needs much more also innovation and technology, is also needs more budget and some who starts perhaps in a kind of job and then they remember everything, they find an uncle who is willing to invest and then they start up. So that you see now increasingly, that's the real ones. And the other one is, so there's not a straightforward answer. The other one is related to the discussion on the learning objective and also teaching methods. It's happening in increasingly also in other universities that, let's say, at every bachelor program ends with a kind of final thesis or project, yeah? Which is roughly speaking 3, 4, 5, 6 months, something like that. Depends a bit the study, yeah? It is not too difficult to shape a final project which meets your academic criteria into a kind of business project for the student. So you can also bring, let's say, this kind of passion of drive of that student into a kind of final project. That is possible. There are definitely examples of doing that. Samuel.
Yeah, I want to say a few things.
Yeah.
I mean, when we have listened to a lot of motivational speakers who tell us, oh, you can succeed, you can make it in life.
Yeah.
And we follow them, and they will give examples like Dangote, Africa's richest man from Nigeria.
Yeah.
Give example like Bill Gates, he didn't finish school. Mike Zuckerberg. So they give these things.
Yeah.
So we get excited about them. So once but he used the word that once they have understood, if somebody has understood entrepreneurship, I don't mind, he can go out. If he has understood it.
Yeah, yeah.
But
the real understanding.
Yes, that's what he said. But the issue is that generally most courses when we teach, we come with the history of the course.
Of course.
So something like this, definitely you talk about the rate of successes and failures in entrepreneurship. For example, in Europe, in Africa, every 100 businesses that start, usually you have 2 succeeding. So they understand it. Do they understand the risks of startups? So I think once you have a program that is talking about all these things, the risk involved when you start and the expectations, I think people are well situated. So if he believes that, I understand and I want to start a business, say praise God, let him go and get some more money for the country. I don't see it as a conflict. Life should be a bit more flexible. I came to university for knowledge, not certificate. Maybe I needed a skill. By the time I finished my undergraduate, I realized I got a skill. I don't need a PhD. I go out there, I make more money. But somebody wants to go to university to be a professor. So he stays, he's not interested in money. So he stays publishing 200 papers. Somebody, 3rd year, he says, I'm gone. And he starts the next biggest business. So I think we need to also encourage them, and I like what you have there, supporting entrepreneurs. Do we support only those who graduate, or those who show signs of promise, even when they are in the second year?
Yeah, exactly, exactly. That's the whole idea. Yeah. William?
Just a very small comment to what has been said. In the university, we have people who are non-academic
Of course.
and people who are really academic oriented. Now,
You mean?
they come in for really
Yeah.
academic work, right?
You're talking about the student body now?
Yeah, student body.
Yeah,
Really academic work. And there are people who are non-academic. The non-academic, we encourage them. But let me just tell you a little bit. In the past, people think that when they grab certificate, and that is, of course, the mindset of a lot of people, getting the certificate gives them a job. So they are always looking for marks. So far as you can give them marks, don't even teach. Just give them marks, and then they get a certificate.
Yeah.
That thing we should change. The key thing is for them, equip them, so they can have a better livelihood. If they want to be academicians, to become professors and to do research, yes, we have that group of people. But there are some, like Brigade, Dangote, and they have entrepreneurial spirit.
Yeah.
Let them go in there and do the work. So, as you said, yes, it's a kind of a life. One shouldn't really be worried too much if somebody has a skill from the beginning and wants to be an entrepreneur. If I can have a magic to raise dead bodies or give long life to people, I am sure I'm going to get a large population of people coming to me because I've gotten a wand to make people live longer. And I'm going to make a lot of money. Why should I waste my time here?
Yeah, exactly. And let's also face it, also Ghana is not waiting for all your graduates to become entrepreneur. Because you still have all kind of government institutions or whatever who also need employees. And also the startups who are successful also need employees. So it's definitely not the idea that 100% of your graduates will become entrepreneur. But let's say the whole idea of the entrepreneurial concept is that what is good for every graduate of KNUST is that they have a kind of skill set, even if they go in Prime Minister office, I don't care in what kind of office, to be able to network, to seek opportunities, to go for it, and not wait for the senior to say that he or she can move. And I think that's, let's say, the whole, the broader concept. And those who are really good and have a kind of perhaps also internal drive, and apart from perhaps already long time of all kind of business people, they really move to business. Okay, I think it's almost tea break, so we're doing perfectly fine. So after tea break we go online, and then we hope that is internet okay now? Perhaps, yeah, because this morning it was sloppy. It's now okay? It's very slow? Yeah, they really need to work on it. Okay, this is how it will look like. I think you can hardly see it.
Can I just
Yeah.
pull us back a bit? Yeah. Will you recommend that the moment you go into these kind of things, entrepreneurship,
Yes.
then some aspect of legal or law should be part of almost everything that we teach students? Because the moment you go into those areas, then you need to have an idea about some of these things like business laws, company laws, and things like that. So will you recommend that then almost every student will have to be introduced to some aspect of...
Why are you asking?
Yeah, I'm asking that
Do you have a kind of example in mind that you think, yeah, because of lack of this knowledge something went wrong, or?
I'm asking that because the moment people begin to go into these things, then protecting their
Now, let's say, I do have an answer. The best education, I think, the best learning happens when you get the information on the moment that you need it. Yeah? So if you would give, let's say, I think that's not what you mean, but let's say, for instance, if you would give a first year student all kind of legal information of doing business in your country without that person had ever thought about starting up a business, it's an example of how you shouldn't do it. Yeah? Because why to give a lecture to someone who is totally not interested in that? So the idea is, let's say, that it is indeed important for those of your students who have shown to really be interested in starting up a business to offer a kind of, to cater them, whether with a small fee or whatever, you need to think about how do you organize that, with certain topical information they need to actually start up the business. And there what we often see that you have a kind of business advisor comes in. That's someone who is more senior, or you give them a kind of possibility to do a kind of course also in marketing is also relevant. You can mention more things. But that, let's say the idea is, yes, it's extremely relevant, but offer it at the moment and to those people who really need it. Instead of offering it too broadly to all kind of people who, come on, yeah, then it's just a mark again. And it's just a mark again. Yeah? Yes, please, Sunday.
Okay, let me just make a little contribution to that.
Yes.
Like what we have in Nigeria is that entrepreneurship
Yes.
is made compulsory for all students.
Exactly.
And being that it is compulsory in the curriculum for entrepreneurship, it has been made part of it that students should know certain aspects of legality that goes with the establishment of business. Yeah. For example, we have what we call the Corporate Affairs Commission in Nigeria, which are basically, they are there to register business name and other legalities that goes with it. Now, the students are meant to learn of this towards the end of their program. So that by the time they go out to start up their business, they will now understand what is required to be able to start up their business on a legal ground. So all I'm trying to say in essence is this: it should be inculcated into the students' curriculum on entrepreneurship studies.
Yep. Okay, so you agree with him? Yep. Okay, fair. Clear. You may switch it off. You see, you cannot read it, I think, because it's too small, but there are 7 bullets in 7 colors, and these stand for the 7 categories that I have explained already. You cannot read this, but I think we need to do it after break, then we go online, and then we can see how it works more in detail. But the essence is that if we, after signing in, because you need to log in and you need to register, you come to there, so you make a kind of assessment, and each of the parts of the circle you can click on, and then you will get access to statements. And you're asked to score each statement on a Likert scale of 1 to 5. It's very simple. Or even you can click non-applicable if need be. So, and then, so every category has 5 statements. I think only the last one on measuring of impact has got 6 statements. And then in the end, you get a total score. And then if everything works out the way I want, we will even have a score of the full group. So that we're going to do, hopefully, when internet is going a bit more juicy, after the tea break. Okay? Let's have a break.